The Chen house was always full of people, yet Lina Chen had never felt lonelier. She sat at the long dining table, hands folded neatly in her lap, watching her family eat dinner. The lights were bright, the food carefully prepared, and the atmosphere loud, but none of it included her. "Eva, eat more vegetables," Helen Chen said, her voice gentle but firm. "You've been working too hard lately." Eva smiled obediently. "Okay, Mom." Across the table, Mark Chen nodded without looking up from his phone. "Your presentation today went well," he said to Eva. "I heard the manager praised you." Eva's smile widened. "Really? I was nervous." Ryan Chen, Lina's older brother, laughed lightly. "You worry too much. You're always the capable one." Lina lowered her eyes. Her bowl of rice was still full. No one had asked her about her day. No one noticed she hadn't touched her food. Helen finally glanced in her direction, her gaze sharp. "Why aren't you eating?" "I'm not hungry," Lina answered quietly. Helen frowned. "You're always like this. If you don't like the food, just say so." "That's not what I meant," Lina replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Ryan sighed, clearly annoyed. "Can you stop being so difficult? Every meal turns awkward because of you." Lina clenched her fingers under the table. She wanted to explain. She wanted to say that she felt sick, that her chest hurt, that she had been dizzy all day. But she had learned long ago that explanations only made things worse. So she stayed silent. After dinner, Lina returned to her small room at the end of the hallway. It used to be a storage room before she came back to the Chen family. The window faced a wall, letting in very little light. She lay down on the bed and stared at the ceiling. "Maybe if I try harder," she thought, like she always did. "Maybe tomorrow they'll notice." The next morning, Lina fainted on the subway platform. When she woke up, she was in a hospital bed. The room was quiet, except for the slow beeping of a machine beside her. Her throat felt dry, and her head ached. A nurse noticed her eyes opening. "You're awake. Do you have family we can contact?" Lina hesitated. "Yes," she said finally. I have family." Hours passed. No one came. The doctor explained she was severely exhausted, malnourished, and under extreme stress. "You should rest," he said gently. "Your body has been giving you warnings for a long time." Lina nodded politely, the way she always did. By evening, the sky outside the window darkened. She checked her phone again and again. No missed calls. No messages. She imagined how the conversation would go if she called home. "You're too sensitive. Don't exaggerate. Eva has an important meeting today." So she didn't call. That night, Lina's condition worsened. Her breathing became shallow. The pain in her chest spread like cold water. A nurse rushed in, followed by doctors. Voices overlapped. Lights blurred. Lina felt strangely calm. As consciousness slipped away, memories surfaced, not happy ones, but ordinary moments. Standing quietly at school events while her parents watched Eva on stage. Hearing Ryan say, "Why can't you be more like her?" Watching her mother smile warmly at someone else. If there is another life, Lina thought faintly, I don't want to try so hard anymore. The world went dark. Lina woke up suddenly, gasping for air. She sat up in bed, heart racing, sweat soaking her pajamas. Sunlight streamed through a familiar window. Her room. The Chen house. She froze. On the desk lay her old school bag. Her phone buzzed with notifications from years ago. The calendar on the wall showed a date that made her breath catch. 5 years earlier. The door opened, and Helen's voice came from the hallway. "Lina, hurry up. We're going to the hospital today." The hospital. Lina stared at her trembling hands. That was the day she was officially brought back to the Chen family. The beginning of everything. The beginning of her slow death. Her chest tightened, but this time, she did not cry. She lay back down and closed her eyes. This time, she remembered how it all ended. And this time, she would stop asking to be loved. Lina used to believe that if she explained herself clearly enough, someone would eventually understand. In this life, she stopped believing that. The Chen family sat in the hospital waiting area, just like in her memories. Helen held Eva's hand tightly, her face full of concern. Mark spoke to the doctor with a serious expression, asking questions in a low voice. Ryan stood nearby, arms crossed, impatient. Lina sat alone on the plastic chair by the wall. "This is just a routine check," Helen said, turning to Eva. "Don't be nervous." Eva nodded, eyes slightly red. "I'm okay, Mom." No one spoke to Lina. No one asked how she felt. In her previous life, Lina had tried to be useful here, fetching water, asking questions, offering help. It only earned her cold looks and comments about being dramatic. So this time, she did nothing. She watched quietly. When the doctor finished explaining, Mark nodded. "Thank you." As they stood up to leave, Ryan finally glanced at Lina. "Why are you just sitting there? At least pretend you care." Lina met his eyes calmly. "I do care." "Then act like it," Ryan snapped. Lina didn't answer. The silence irritated him more than any argument would have. At home, things began to change slowly, almost invisibly. Lina stopped waking up early to prepare breakfast. She stopped reminding Helen about appointments. She stopped waiting in the living room at night just in case her parents came home and might talk to her. She went to school. She came back. She studied in her room. Nothing more. Helen noticed first. "Why have you become so lazy?" she asked one evening, irritation clear in her voice. "You used to help around the house." "I'm focusing on school," Lina replied evenly. Helen scoffed. "Eva studies too, and she still helps." Lina nodded. "She's capable." Helen frowned. "What kind of answer is that?" Lina didn't respond. Ryan slammed his chopsticks down. "You think staying silent makes you mature? It just makes you annoying." Lina continued eating. In her heart, something felt strangely light. She was no longer exhausted from trying to guess what everyone wanted from her. At school, Lina changed even more. She sat in the front row. She answered questions when asked. She stopped hiding her abilities. Her grades rose quickly, not because she wanted praise, but because studying gave her control, something her family never had. Teachers began to notice. "You're very consistent," one said. "Why didn't you show this before?" Lina smiled politely. "I wasn't ready." That was true, in a way. At home, her improvement went unseen. Helen only cared about Eva's extracurriculars. Mark only asked about rankings when it concerned Eva's future. Ryan only commented when Lina failed to meet his standards of effort. And Lina let them. One night, Lina overheard Helen talking on the phone. "She's always been distant," Helen said. "I don't know what she's thinking. Eva is much more considerate." Lina stood outside the door, listening. In her past life, this would have hurt deeply. Now, it felt like confirmation. Later that week, Lina stayed late at the library. When she returned home, the living room lights were on. Eva and Mark were laughing over something on the TV. Mark glanced up. "You're late." "I stayed to study," Lina said. Mark nodded once and looked back at the screen. That was it. No concern. No questions. Lina walked past them and went to her room. She closed the door gently and leaned against it. "This is fine," she told herself. "This is exactly how it's supposed to be." Days turned into weeks. Eva began to notice. Lina no longer reacted to comparisons. She no longer defended herself. She no longer even looked hurt. That scared Eva more than anger ever had. One afternoon, Eva casually asked, "Lina, are you mad at us?" Lina paused, thinking. "No," she said truthfully. "I'm just tired." Eva smiled awkwardly. "You should talk more. We're family." Lina looked at her sister for a long moment. "Family." She nodded lightly. "Okay." But she didn't change. That night, Lina wrote in a notebook she kept hidden under her bed. "Silence isn't weakness," she wrote. "It's the only thing that belongs to me." As she closed the notebook, a faint pain spread through her chest. She pressed her hand there, breathing slowly until it passed. She knew this feeling. Her body remembered what her family refused to see. Lina lay down, staring into the darkness. This time, she wouldn't scream. If they never heard her, that would be their choice. Lina learned something important in her second life. Effort did not guarantee love, but it could guarantee independence. By her second year of university, Lina had become someone people quietly relied on. She finished group projects early, spoke clearly during presentations, and never missed deadlines. She didn't stand out loudly, but she was impossible to ignore. Still, she never mentioned any of it at home. One evening, Mark came back late from work, loosening his tie as he walked into the living room. "Eva," he said casually, "your aunt said you might apply for an overseas exchange program." "That's good. We can talk about it this weekend." Eva's eyes lit up. "Really? I was worried it would be expensive." Mark waved his hand. "Education is important." Lina stood nearby, holding a glass of water. She had received a full scholarship offer that morning. Tuition, housing, everything covered. She said nothing. Helen glanced at Lina. "Why are you standing there?" "I'm going to my room," Lina replied. Ryan frowned. "You're always disappearing. Don't you have anything to contribute?" Lina thought about it. She did have something to contribute: news, achievements, plans. But she remembered how, in her previous life, she had shared them eagerly, only to be met with indifference or comparison. So she shook her head. "No." Ryan scoffed. "Figures." In her room, Lina opened her laptop. An email from the scholarship committee sat unread. She read it slowly, carefully, letting the words sink in. "Congratulations." She closed the laptop without replying. At school, things were different. A professor stopped her after class. "Lina, have you considered applying for the research assistant position?" "Yes," Lina said calmly. "I already submitted the form." The professor smiled in surprise. "Good. I look forward to working with you." That afternoon, Lina met Leo Wang at the campus cafe. He was a year older, from the same department, and one of the few people who didn't pry. "You look tired," Leo said, pushing a cup of warm tea toward her. "Do I?" Lina asked. "A little," he replied. "But also, lighter. Like you've figured something out." Lina smiled faintly. "Maybe." Leo didn't ask more. That was why she didn't mind his company. As they talked about coursework, Lina felt a dull ache in her chest again. She ignored it, the way she always did now. At home, Eva watched Lina more closely than anyone else. She noticed how Lina left early and returned late. How teachers occasionally called the house not to complain, but to praise. How Lina's name appeared on school notices, even if no one in the family bothered to read them. One night, Eva overheard a phone call. "Yes, she's very capable," a woman's voice said through the speaker. "Top of her class. Extremely independent." Eva stood frozen outside the study. They were talking about Lina. For the first time, Eva felt something twist uncomfortably in her chest, not jealousy exactly, but fear. At dinner, Eva tried to sound casual. "Lina, how's school?" Everyone looked up. Lina paused mid-bite. "It's fine. That's all." Eva pressed, smiling. "You've been busy lately." Lina met her gaze. "Busy doesn't mean important." Ryan snorted. "At least you're self-aware." Lina didn't react. Helen turned to Eva immediately. "You don't need to worry about her. Focus on yourself." Eva nodded, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. That night, Lina stayed up late organizing documents, certificates, recommendation letters, medical records. She moved quietly, efficiently, like someone preparing for a long journey. Her phone buzzed. A message from the hospital system reminded her of a follow-up appointment she had missed. Lina stared at the screen for a long moment, then turned the phone face down. She had been sick in her previous life. Weak, exhausted, invisible. This time, she was strong. Or at least, she told herself she was. Down the hallway, Helen passed by Lina's room and noticed the light was still on. "She never sleeps early," Helen muttered. "Always doing useless things." Mark didn't look up from his tablet. "As long as she doesn't cause trouble." Lina heard none of this. She sat on her bed, documents neatly stacked beside her, breathing slowly through another wave of pain. It's okay, she thought. Just a little longer. Outside her room, laughter drifted from the living room. Eva's voice was bright. Ryan's tone relaxed. The house was warm. And Lina felt very far away. As she turned off the light, she wondered, not for the first time, how someone could live so close to others, yet remain completely unseen. Eva had always believed she belonged. That certainty had never wavered until now. The first doubt came from a phone call meant for someone else. A legal office, asking questions about birth certificates and hospital records. Eva listened in silence, her fingers gripping the edge of the desk. After she hung up, she sat very still. She told herself it was a mistake. It had to be. But once doubt existed, it refused to stay quiet. Eva began searching old boxes in storage, photo albums, documents Helen kept locked away. Late at night, when the house was asleep, Eva scrolled through public records, hospital databases, anything she could access. And slowly, painfully, the truth surfaced. The dates didn't match. The names didn't align. The blood type was wrong. Eva stared at the screen, her breathing uneven. She was not a Chen by blood. Across the hall, Lina sat at her desk, reviewing notes for an upcoming presentation. Her head throbbed faintly, but she kept going. She had learned to work through pain. The next morning, breakfast was tense. Eva watched Lina closely, searching her face for something: triumph, bitterness, accusation. But Lina ate quietly, as always. Helen broke the silence. Eva, don't forget your meeting today. I know, Eva replied automatically. Mark nodded. I'll have the driver take you. Lina stood up, gathering her bag. I'll take the subway. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Trying to prove something again? No, Lina said calmly. It's faster. She left before anyone could respond. Eva watched the door close. For the first time, Lina's indifference felt threatening. Fear did strange things to people. Eva began to talk more about how distant Lina was, how ungrateful, how cold. She doesn't act like family, Eva said one evening, her voice trembling slightly. Sometimes I feel like she looks down on us. Helen's face hardened immediately. She's always been like that. Ryan nodded. She never puts in emotional effort. Eva lowered her eyes. I don't want Dad and Mom to be hurt. Mark frowned. Has she said something? No, Eva said quickly. She doesn't say anything. That's what scares me. The seed was planted. That night, Lina returned home late from a campus event. As she passed the living room, Helen called out sharply, "Sit." Lina stopped. "We need to talk," Helen said. "About your attitude." Lina sat down slowly. "You've been cold, distant, disrespectful," Helen continued. "You act like this family owes you something." Lina listened quietly. Ryan crossed his arms. "You think silence makes you superior?" Lina looked at them, really looked. In her past life, she would have defended herself. Cried. Apologized. Promised to do better. This time, she only said, "I've never asked for anything." Helen scoffed. "Your existence is already a burden." The words landed cleanly. Eva looked away. Something inside Lina finally loosened. "I understand," Lina said. Her calm unsettled them. She stood up and walked to her room. Inside, Lina closed the door and leaned against it, her heart racing painfully. The ache in her chest sharpened, spreading down her arm. She slid to the floor, breathing slowly, counting each inhale. Not yet, she thought. Just a little longer. The next day, Lina collapsed at work. Leo caught her just before she hit the ground. Her face was pale, her lips bloodless. "You're coming with me," he said firmly, ignoring her weak protests. At the hospital, the doctor frowned as he read her chart. "You've been ignoring symptoms for a long time," he said. "Stress, exhaustion, heart complications. This isn't something you can push through." Lina stared at the ceiling. "Can I go home?" The doctor sighed. "You can, but you shouldn't." She went anyway. Back at the Chen house, Eva received a message from the legal office. We've confirmed the records. You were switched at birth. Eva's hands shook. She looked down the hallway, toward Lina's room. Lina had always been quiet. Always distant. Always prepared. Suddenly, Eva wondered how much Lina already knew. That evening, Lina returned home unusually early. Her steps were slow, her face pale. No one noticed. Eva stood at the top of the stairs, watching Lina walk past without looking up. For the first time, Eva felt small. The truth was cracking the foundation of the family. And beneath it, Lina was already breaking. The truth did not explode the Chen family all at once. It leaked. Slowly. Relentlessly. It began with a call from the legal office Mark had ignored twice already. The third time, he answered impatiently only to fall silent halfway through the conversation. Helen noticed immediately. What is it? Mark's grip tightened on the phone. They want us to come in. About Eva's documents. Eva stood frozen by the stairs. Ryan frowned. What kind of documents? No one answered. At the office, the air was cold and formal. Files were placed on the table. Dates, names, hospital seals. This is the confirmed report, the lawyer said carefully. Eva Chen is not biologically related to you. Your biological daughter is Lina Chen. Silence. Helen's face drained of color. That's impossible. Eva's breath came in short gasps. There must be a mistake. There isn't, the lawyer replied. Mark stared at the papers, his mind racing backward through years of memories. Moments where Lina stood quietly at the edge. Moments where he dismissed her presence as awkwardness. Ryan slammed his fist on the table. So all this time. The lawyer cleared his throat. There's more. He pushed another file forward. Lina Chen has not been using the family's insurance for years. Her recent hospital records show repeated admissions under her own name. Helen's heart skipped. Hospital? Mark stood abruptly. Why wasn't the family notified? The lawyer hesitated. According to the forms, she listed no emergency contact. The drive home was silent. Eva stared out the window, tears sliding down her face. For the first time, she didn't know where she belonged. Helen's thoughts were elsewhere. Hospital. Records. No emergency contact. They arrived home and rushed toward Lina's room. The door was unlocked. The room was clean. Too clean. The bed neatly made. The desk organized. On top of it sat a folder labeled simply, Lina. Mark opened it with shaking hands. Inside were medical reports. Appointment reminders. Test results. Dates stretched back years. Helen sank onto the bed, her fingers trembling as she picked up a report. Why didn't she say anything? Ryan's throat tightened. She did. We just didn't listen. Mark looked around the room, noticing details he had ignored before: the lack of decorations, the single lamp, the window that barely let light in. This was her room, he asked hoarsely. No one answered. At that moment, Mark's phone rang. The hospital. His face went pale. They arrived too late. Lina lay still on the bed, machines silent now. Her face was calm, as if she were finally resting. The doctor spoke gently. She was admitted earlier today. Acute heart failure compounded by long-term stress and neglect. We did everything we could. Helen stumbled forward. She's my daughter, she whispered. I'm her mother. The doctor paused. She never mentioned family. Mark felt something shatter inside him. Ryan stood frozen, memories crashing down every harsh word, every comparison, every time he told her to try harder. Eva stood at the doorway, unable to move. She knew, Eva whispered. She knew before all of us. They held a funeral 3 days later. It rained. The Chen family stood before a simple gravestone. Lina Chen. No titles. No praise. Just her name. Helen reached out, touching the stone as if it might be warm. I'm sorry, she said, over and over. Mom is sorry. Mark stood rigid, unable to speak. Ryan lowered his head, fists clenched. I should have protected you, he muttered. Eva stayed back. She realized something then: Lina had never tried to take her place. She had simply waited, and let go. As the family left, the cemetery fell quiet again. That night, the Chen house was unbearably silent. Lina's room remained untouched. Helen stood at the door for a long time, then finally stepped inside. She sat on the bed, clutching the folder to her chest. "She didn't even hate us," she whispered. Mark stood in the hallway, staring at the closed door. For the first time in his life, success felt meaningless. Ryan sat alone in the living room, replaying every moment he chose judgment over kindness. And Eva sat in her room, holding the truth like a weight she could never put down. They had finally chosen Lina. But the choice had come after she was gone. The Chen house no longer felt like a home. Mornings were silent. No one rushed out the door. No one complained about schedules. The dining table was still set for 4, but only 3 seats were ever used. Lina's seat remained empty. Helen woke up early every day now. She would stand in the kitchen, staring at the stove, unsure what she had planned to cook. In the past, she cooked with purpose, for Eva's preferences, for Mark's health, for Ryan's appetite. She realized she had never once asked Lina what she liked. One morning, Helen found herself preparing a simple bowl of porridge. Halfway through, her hands began to shake. "She liked this," Helen whispered to the empty kitchen. "Didn't she?" No one answered. Mark buried himself in work, but it no longer brought comfort. Meetings blurred together. Numbers lost meaning. Late at night, he would sit alone in the study, staring at Lina's folder, the one he had taken from her room and never returned. He read the medical reports again and again, as if repetition might change the ending. "Why didn't you use the family insurance?" he murmured. "Was it pride? Or, did you think we wouldn't care?" The question haunted him. Ryan avoided home whenever possible. When he did return, he never entered Lina's room. He told himself it was respect, but deep down, it was fear. He remembered every time Lina stood quietly behind him. Every time she tried to speak and he cut her off. "Try harder," he had said. "Stop being sensitive." At night, Ryan dreamed of Lina standing in the hallway, looking at him calmly. "You don't need to protect me anymore," she said. He always woke up sweating. Eva's world had collapsed in a different way. She moved through the house like a guest, careful, apologetic, uncertain. The identity she had built her life around was gone, replaced with guilt she could not escape. One afternoon, Eva stood outside Lina's room for a long time before knocking softly, out of habit. She stepped inside. The room smelled faintly of clean paper and medicine. Eva sat on the bed and picked up Lina's notebook from the desk. She hesitated, then opened it. The pages were neat. The handwriting steady. "Silence isn't weakness. It's the only thing that belongs to me." Eva pressed the notebook to her chest and cried for the first time since the funeral. "She never hated me," Eva whispered. "She just let me have everything." Days later, Leo Wang visited the Chen house. He stood awkwardly in the living room, holding a small paper bag. "Lina asked me to give this to her family, if she ever couldn't." Helen's breath caught. She prepared this?" Leo nodded. She was very calm. Inside the bag was a flash drive and a short note. "I don't blame anyone. Please live well." That was all. They watched the video together that night. Lina appeared on the screen, sitting in her small room, light from the window barely touching her face. "If you're watching this," Lina said softly, "it means I didn't make it." Helen covered her mouth. "I don't want apologies," Lina continued. "I just want you to stop hurting yourselves the way you hurt me, without realizing it." She smiled faintly. "I'm not lonely anymore." The video ended. No one spoke. Weeks passed. The Chen family donated to hospitals, funded scholarships, and created a small foundation in Lina's name. It helped many people. But it didn't bring her back. One evening, Mark stood in the hallway and finally opened Lina's door fully. Sunlight filtered in through the narrow window. "So this was your world," he said quietly. Helen stood beside him. "We were so loud," she whispered. "And she was so quiet." Ryan placed a small plant on Lina's windowsill. "I'll take care of it," he said. I won't forget. Eva stood at the doorway, unsure if she belonged there. After a moment, Helen reached out and held her hand. Not tightly. Not possessively. Just gently. We all lost her, Helen said. Outside, the city moved on. Cars passed. People laughed. Life continued. But inside the Chen house, one truth remained unchanged. They had learned how to love. Too late. The final shot lingered on Lina's empty room, sunlight slowly fading, the plant by the window standing quietly, alive. Just like she once was.